Welcome back, everyone, to the Bears Probably Plays YouTube channel. Today is Saturday, September 7th. Well, it might be Friday, September 6th, depending on when you're watching this. But we've got a beautiful slate of college football this weekend to look at. Last weekend, we started off hot, 6-0 run of the game picks. We're looking to do the exact same thing this weekend, but we've got a few more games to talk about. 7 total games, maybe 8 games for you guys on Saturday. 3 best player props towards the end of the video. I'm going to be breaking down what I think are going to be the 4 biggest games, and then we're going to be looking at 3 more games towards the end of the video that I think are definitely worth a play. Hope you guys enjoy your Saturday, and let's break down some ball. All right, guys, let's take a look at the graphic for Friday. Obviously, these games have not started yet. I'm going to try to get this video out by noon on Friday so everybody has a chance to watch before Saturday's games. BYU plus 11.5 going up against SMU. Duke on the money line going up against Northwestern. We have Jordan Moore over 62.5 receiving yards against Northwestern, and then Chase Roberts over 46.5 receiving yards going up against SMU in that game. Let's look at the leaderboard. Nothing has changed. Pretty good on the game picks, pretty bad on the player props, but I think the player props going to be a lot better once we get some info on some of these teams, see how they're playing in the first couple of weeks. But I do want to try to make this video about 10 minutes or a little bit below 10 minutes, a little bit above 10 minutes. I know whenever I'm looking at videos to watch, if it's over 10 minutes on like game picks and player props, there's a pretty good chance I'm not even going to watch it. So I'm going to try to do my best to keep these videos at 10 minutes for the Saturday college football slate. With that being said, we're going to get right into these games. I'm going to try to go 1 minute per game and then 1 minute per player prop. That'll get us to 10 minutes probably. We're going to start with the first play of the day here. It's going to be the best game on the slate. Texas going on the road to face off against Michigan, a top 10 battle. Texas, they stomped on Colorado State in their opening game, scored 31 points in the first half. Everybody looked great. Quinn Ewers looks really good. Even the Manning kid looked pretty good coming in off the bench, throwing a touchdown. The defense shut out Colorado State. That's not a bad team either. They're definitely not a good team, but they weren't playing an FCS team. This was an FBS team who was decent last season. I do think Colorado State defensively has some major problems, and Texas was able to do whatever they wanted in that game, but they still beat them 52-0. For Michigan, they scored 10 points in the first half going up against Fresno State at home. They did finish the game winning 30-10. Everybody's on Texas in this game, I feel like, and I don't feel like the big house is going to be too much of an impact because Texas is known for playing in some really tough environments. I did read up on a couple articles that said Michigan didn't throw anything at Fresno State. They wanted to keep everything under wraps and throw everything at Texas in week number 2. Michigan's quarterbacks, who knows what's going to happen? Both of them didn't look great. Neither of them played great against Fresno State. Edwards, he needs to play a lot better in this game. The running back, the offensive line, they need to play a lot better in this game. Texas, they're a very good team, but giving Michigan a touchdown plus a little bit of extra at home, I'm going to take the points every time. There's a very strong possibility that Texas is just the better team. They come out here and stomp them, but what we've seen over Michigan over the last several years, I think this is going to be a close game and a low-scoring game. Give me Michigan here, plus 7.5 on the back of that defense at home as the play. Michigan, they cover. Texas wins 24-20 as the play there. For the next play, this might be the best game of the day depending on where you're at in the country. We're going to be starting with the Cyclones in this game, who did win 21-3 in week number 1 going up against North Dakota. Scoring 21 points going up against North Dakota as an FCS team is probably not what they wanted to start week number 1, but they got the job done. The defense for the Cyclones is going to be their best player this season once again as they're looking to just shut out other teams on their way to victories. We did see Rocco have a pretty good game going up against North Dakota, 267 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, completed all of his passes but 6. But this is going to be a lot tougher test than going up against North Dakota because the Hawkeyes, that defense, they love to turn people over. For Iowa, they look the exact same this season than they did last season in the first half. They scored 6 points against Illinois State. That's the kind of football I want to see. They did make some adjustments at the half, and they were able to put up 40 points behind Caden McNamara, throwing for 3 touchdowns, 250-plus yards. Caleb Johnson also had 100-plus yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. The Hawkeyes, they were able to get a shutout as well going up against Illinois State, which a lot of people probably saw that coming. This defense, they've been electric over the last several years. They only gave up a total of 189 yards to Illinois State, and I really think this game's going to be disgusting. Over the past several years, this has been a low-scoring game, and it's been very close over the last several years. Usually, I feel like this game is played towards the end of the season, but this game is very early. Both teams have their entire season in front of them. This is one of the best rivalries in college football, so I do expect a low-scoring game, a lot of defense in this game. The Cyclones, they did take this one in 2022, 10-7 on the road the last time they won. I think it's going to be very similar. I'm going to take them 13-12 to win this game outright. I'm going to take them +3 as the play. One of the best positions in football as well. The Hawkeyes waving up to the Children's Hospital. It's basically the only reason anybody watches the Iowa Hawkeyes play football. But this time, Iowa State, at the end of the game, they're going to be waving goodbye to the Hawkeyes on the sideline as they steal one here on the road. Give me Iowa State +3 as the play. For the next play, it's going to be Tennessee going up against NC State. Tennessee in week number 1, they looked like one of the best teams in the country. I think they are one of the best teams in the country. They were able to put up 69 points on Chattanooga. The defense was able to hold Chattanooga to only 3 points. And the only name I've been hearing over the last week is Nico. I'm not even going to try with the last name. I know myself better than that. But I did go back and watch the highlights for Nico in that first game against Chattanooga. He did make some really good throws. It looks like he made the right decisions. This is going to be a pretty good test for him, I think. NC State, they have a decent defense, one of the better defenses coming out of the ACC. They didn't look very good going up against Western Carolina. They were tied to half 14-all, but the defense in the second half only allowed 7 points. And NC State finally in the fourth quarter, the offense started to pick up a little bit, 21 unanswered. So both these teams are coming off a win in week number 1, but Tennessee, they just look so good in that game. The uniforms look great. They looked good against Chattanooga. They were amazing. And I know it was Chattanooga. They're not a very good team, but Western Carolina, they put up 21 points on this defense last week. They gave up nearly 300 yards of offense. In Tennessee last week, they put up almost 800 yards. I think this is going to be a bloodbath. Give me Tennessee, the Volunteers, 41-17 final score. And that might be nice to NC State. They might score way over 41 points. Let's go to the last game for the big games. We're going to be looking at Colorado going up against Nebraska. The last time I broke down Colorado, pat myself on the back, I basically called it play-by-play. Colorado, they were to get the win at home, winning 31-26 going up against North Dakota State. They didn't cover the spread, and they also let North Dakota State convert a Hail Mary down to the 5-yard line, which would have been disaster for Dion and company at home, losing on a Hail Mary. Colorado defensively, they still have a ton of problems. The secondary is a huge problem besides Travis Hunter. They didn't get a whole lot of pressure on North Dakota State, but I will say the one positive, and actually the two positives, Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback, looked pretty good. The offensive line looked pretty good. I think people took it out of context when I said Shedeur Sanders was a good quarterback, not great. He has a ton of talent. If you give this guy time in the pocket, most of the time he's going to make the right decision and throw a dart to his open receiver. But in this game, going up against Nebraska, we're going to see the offensive line get tested. I think that's going to be a problem here for Colorado. I think Nebraska's a really good team. I also think Nebraska did a really good job bringing in more players this offseason, especially at the skill position like wide receiver and especially the quarterback. People are saying they were struggling going up against UTEP, but they were up 30-7 at half, scoring 23 points in the second quarter, and that was normal for a lot of these big teams. Struggling in the first quarter, you got to be able to knock off some rust a little bit. They ended up winning 40-7. I guess I could say the same thing about Colorado. They knocked off the rest in the first half, but North Dakota State, they were the better team in the fourth quarter against Colorado. So these teams, they played last season. Colorado got the best of Nebraska because Nebraska, they couldn't stop turning the ball over. I think we're going to see a lot better Nebraska team effort in this one. It's going to be behind Dylan Raiola. Nebraska also brought on a senior who played at Wake Forest for 4 seasons. His name is Jamal Banks, 6'4", 220 pounds. He's going to be a problem, I think, in the secondary for Colorado. Travis Hunter can't guard everybody, and this is going to be a huge mismatch for the smaller secondary of Colorado. I know a lot of people like Colorado. I know the public likes Colorado. I just don't think this is a very good team besides a couple players. I'm going to take Nebraska at home. This feels like a completely different program. I know people say that every year, but I'm going to take them here. 38-24 final score. I don't think Colorado can stop them. Nebraska minus 7.5 as the play. Let's go look at some player props. We've got 3 player props today. The first one we're going to be looking at the transfer to Arkansas, Taylon Green, to go over 42.5 rushing yards against Oklahoma State. We have Ollie Gordon on the other side, who's probably going to get 30-plus touches in this game, but I do think Taylor Green is going to be talked about in this game on the ground. This is one of the better dual-threat quarterbacks in football this season, the transfer out of Boise State. Last season, he did have some problems throwing the ball, but over the last couple seasons, he has no problem rushing the ball. He's had nearly over 500 yards in back-to-back seasons, scoring 10 touchdowns in 2022, 9 touchdowns in 2023 for Boise State. He started things off hot this season with Arkansas. He didn't play a very good opponent in week number 1. He finished last week with 229 passing yards, 88 rushing yards on the ground, and 4 total touchdowns. I do think Oklahoma State can be vulnerable if he tries to scramble in this game. They allowed 124 rushing yards last week. But really, this is all about containment. This is a very fast, very athletic quarterback, and over 42.5 rushing yards. That seems low in a game that should be very competitive. The only downside for this rushing yards play is quarterbacks in college. When you get sacked, it's negative yards, but I'm hoping only a couple sacks in this game. Over 42.5 as the play there. For the next play today, I've already talked about it a little bit. We're going to be taking Dylan Raiola of Nebraska to go over 2.5 passing touchdowns. This is plus 220 on FanDuel. This really shouldn't be plus 220 because I think he can throw for 4, even 5 touchdowns in this game going up against that secondary of Colorado. I've already talked about the new players that Nebraska brought in at the receiver position. I do think they're going to win this matchup going up against Colorado as well. I also don't think Colorado as a whole can stop Nebraska. The only team that can stop Nebraska in this game going up against Colorado is Nebraska themselves with penalties and turnovers. We should see them throw the ball a lot in this game against Colorado. Last season, the defense, the secondary, they were horrible. This season, they look bad again. 292 passing yards against North Dakota State. Last game for Dylan, he had 2 total touchdowns. Was a pretty good start to the season for him. And this is the little brother of Patrick Mahomes, apparently. Not by blood, just by looks. Give me the over 2.5 passing touchdowns for him. For the last play, it's going to be another quarterback. It's a quarterback kind of day. I'm going to talk about him for the other plays in a little bit. It's going to be John Mutter of Washington State to go over 2.5 passing touchdowns going up against Texas Tech. Last week, Texas Tech, they did win the game, but going up against Abilene Christian, an FCS team, they allowed 506 passing yards and 51 points. This is going to be a very high-scoring game. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit, but last week, John, 352 passing yards, 6 total touchdowns. There's going to be a lot of touchdowns in this game. I'm hoping there's going to be a lot of passing yards in this game. I think Washington State can give us a 50 burger here. I'm going to take John Mutter to go over his total touchdowns, 2.5 as the play there. Let's go over to the graphic and the other plays. We have Texas Tech and Washington State as the first play we're going to be looking at, over 66 points. Texas Tech in the first game, I just said it, at home, they scored 52 points with 539 total yards of offense, so I love them in this game to put at least some points going up against Washington State. Now, I said they scored 52 points, but the real reason I'm going with the over is because they gave up 51 points to Abilene Christian. They allowed 615 total yards, 506 passing yards. We're going to see both these quarterbacks for Texas Tech and Washington State throw for 500 plus. John Mutter, the quarterback for Washington State, going up against Portland State. He only had 11 completions, 17 pass attempts. He turned that into 352 yards, 5 touchdowns, adding in a rushing touchdown. I also think Texas Tech can put up a lot of points in this game because Portland State, they scored 30 on Washington State. So I do think the over is going to cash pretty easily in this one, over 66 as the play there. For the next play, we're going to be looking at South Carolina going up against Kentucky. Kentucky is at home this game. They're laying 9 points. And everything I'm reading, everything I'm seeing, everything I'm hearing is saying that South Carolina might be the worst team in this conference. At home in their first game, they almost lost to Old Dominion, only winning that game 23-19, scoring a late touchdown in the fourth quarter. Kentucky, they didn't have any problems in their opening game at home. They scored 31 points, and they shut out Southern Miss with that defense. South Carolina going up against Old Dominion, they were horrible through the air. They were not very good on the ground either. And the Wildcats defense, they're pretty good this season, it looks like. I'm going to go off of what everybody is saying. South Carolina might be the worst team in this conference. Kentucky looks like they're pretty good this season. And this is a game Kentucky, it feels like they lose a lot going up against South Carolina in past years. I think they're going to dominate South Carolina here. -9 at home as the play. For the last play today, we're going to be looking at some action. We took Miami, Ohio game last week. We're going to be looking at the Toledo game this week, laying 17.5 going up against another really bad team this year. We were on Eastern Michigan on the member side on last Saturday, got the job done against UMass. This is basically a trial run for UMass because they got accepted into the Mid-American Conference starting on July 1st, 2025. So we're going to see these types of matchups a lot over the next several years. They took the loss last week, 28-14, going up against Eastern Michigan, and they're not a very good team. And this week, they're going to be going up against a much better Toledo team who loves to run and gun. They are most likely going to win the MAC this year. Toledo, they look great their first game. They scored 49 points in the opening game going up against the Dukes of Duquesne. The new quarterback, Tucker Gleason, he had a really good game. 202 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. It is very weird watching Toledo play without DeQuan Finn, but that's the world we live in now. The Toledo defense, they were really good. They only allowed 10 points in that game. They're a very athletic team. They like to force turnovers, and they like to put up points. I'm going to take them in this game, laying the points. At home, this is a massive gap in talent between these two teams. Give me the Rockets, -17.5. Let's take a look at the recap graphic. I'm looking at my time. I did not make the 10-minute mark. I'll have to do better next week. We're taking Michigan, +7.5. Iowa State, +3. I like them to win the game as well. Tennessee, -10 against NC State. Nebraska, -7.5 against Colorado. I don't see the Colorado hype. I know everybody likes Colorado. I know the comment section loves Colorado, but I just don't see it. Texas Tech, Wazoo, over 66 points. Kentucky, -9 going up against South Carolina. And then Toledo, -17.5 is the game picks. We have Taylon Green, over 42.5 rushing yards against OK State. Dylan Raiola, over 2.5 passing touchdowns against Colorado. And then John Mutter to go over 2.5 passing touchdowns against Texas Tech. It is a big quarterback day for the player props. Guys, that's going to do it for the NCAA football plays and props for Saturday, September 7th slate of games. If you guys enjoyed the content, please sure to drop a like in this video and subscribe to the channel below. See you guys next video, and thanks for watching.